Tonight, let us gently explore a quiet story from long ago about two brothers named Cain and Abel. Their story is one of beginnings, in a world very new and full of many firsts. Cain and Abel were the first two sons of a man named Adam and a woman named Eve. They lived in a garden called Eden, a place made by God, where everything was fresh, green, and full of life. This was a time when the earth was young, and people were learning about the world around them. Cain was the older brother. He worked the soil. This means he grew food from the land. Abel, his younger brother, took care of animals. He was a shepherd, tending to sheep and caring for them every day. Imagine the soft sounds of the fields, the rustle of leaves in the warm breeze, and the gentle bleating of sheep far away. One day both brothers decided to bring gifts to God. It was their way of showing respect and love, offerings from what they had worked hard to make or care for. Cain brought some of the crops he had grown, grains from the earth, bright and new. Abel brought the best parts of the firstborn of his sheep, a tender gift from his very best lamb. God looked at their offerings. Abel's gift was accepted, but Cain's was not. We are not told exactly why. Perhaps the story is quiet here because some things are hard to understand, or because the feelings involved are deep and complex. Cain felt sadness and anger growing quietly inside him, like a storm gathering behind pale clouds. God, in his gentle way, spoke to Cain, warning him to stay strong, to choose kindness and calm over darker feelings. But even with the warning, Cain's trouble inside did not slowly fade away. One day God invited Cain to come and talk, a chance to listen and to reflect before anything else happened. But Cain chose to act in a way that changed everything very quickly. He invited Abel to go out with him, to a field not far from where they lived, just a quiet place where the grass whispered softly in the wind. There, something very sad occurred. Cain hurt his brother Abel. It is not easy to speak these things softly, even in the gentle telling of a bedtime story. This moment in their story marks a great sadness, because it teaches us about choices and how feelings can take us to hard places when we are not careful. Afterward, God came to Cain again, and the quiet question was asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" This question was gentle, but full of meaning, inviting Cain to reflect on what had happened and to feel the weight of his choice. Cain's answer was, "I do not know," which might mean many things, but in the story it feels like a small moment where truth and silence blend. The story does not rush here. It lets us sit with the quiet and the questions that are hard to answer. Because of what happened, Cain was given a consequence, not as a punishment, but as a marker of his choice. He was to live in a land away from his home, a lonely place where the earth was harder and life more difficult. Yet even then, God marked Cain to protect him, so no harm would come to him from others. This story of Cain and Abel holds many tender moments. It is quiet and slow like a whisper in the dark, reminding us of the first feelings of jealousy and sorrow, and of choices that change the course of life. It shows us the deep and complicated ways people can feel toward each other, even within the same family. As the night deepens, we sit softly with this story, allowing the silence to speak gently to us. The world of Cain and Abel is a very old one, but it carries feelings we know well, even today. We have not yet finished their story. There is more to come, but for now we leave Cain walking into his new land, carrying his heavy heart and the quiet hope that someday kindness might find a way back into his life. And we leave Abel lying still in the field under the watchful eyes of a tender earth. Now breathe slowly and gently as the story waits patiently for the next moment to come. The world is calm, the stars are shining quietly above, and the story of Cain and Abel rests softly in the dark, ready to be told more when you are ready to listen again. Cain walked away from the field with heavy steps, the dust rising slowly beneath his feet. His heart was tangled in a web of regret and confusion, emotions with no clear shape or sound. The earth under his feet seemed less firm, less familiar. The land stretched out, rough and wild in this new place, and Cain was alone with its quiet, apart from the soft sigh of the wind through the trees. He touched the mark on his skin, the sign God had given him for protection. It was meant to keep others from causing him harm, and yet it felt like a scar not only on his body, but also on his spirit. It reminded him that his actions carried weight, something he would carry always. But even in this hardship, a fragile hope glimmered inside him, hope for change, hope for understanding. As days passed, Cain tilled the new soil with patience. The earth was stubborn and required gentle coaxing, but the wildness around him slowly transformed under his care. Every seed he buried was a small prayer, for growth, for kindness, for belonging. The rhythm of his work softened the sharp edges of anger and sadness inside him. It was a quiet journey, step by step. The sun moved across the sky like the steady hand of time itself, unhurried and knowing. Cain looked towards the horizon and wondered if Abel's spirit lingered somewhere beyond the fields, watching, forgiving, waiting. There was a yearning in his heart, a yearning to meet peace once more. In this distant land, trees stretched their branches wide, and animals moved through the grass in peaceful harmony. Birds sang songs that felt like whispers of comfort. Cain learned to listen, to the soil beneath his hands, to the wind's gentle murmur, and even to the soft pulse of his own breath. Each sound was a thread, weaving a tapestry of life around him, folding the world into dark velvet sprinkled with stars. Cain watched these distant lights, finding in them a quiet companionship. The stars knew stories older than time itself, stories of hope, forgiveness, and new beginnings. They reminded Cain that his story was but one part of a vast, unfolding journey. Back in the garden where Abel rested beneath the earth, the land embraced him gently. Wildflowers grew in tender circles, their colors soft against the green. The breeze carried the scent of earth and hope. Though silent, the field was alive with memories, the laughter of childhood, the warmth of family, and the deep knowing of the earth's eternal cycles. Adam and Eve, who still walked the garden paths with careful steps, felt the weight of their son's stories. Though sorrow touched their hearts, the garden continued to bloom. Life stirred in every corner, speaking quietly of resilience and the enduring bond that connects all living things. In time, Cain's thoughts drifted to the families he had never known, the children of this new land, the people whose lives would entwine with his. He imagined how kindness, once lost and then found again, could ripple outward like the gentle waves on a lake. He recognized that every choice, even those shadowed by pain, held seeds of possibility. Cain's hands grew calloused but steady. His heart moved slowly from anger toward understanding. He knew the path before him would not be simple or free from sorrow, but it was a path walked with intention, a path where forgiveness might eventually blossom, soft as spring rain. The quiet of the land invited reflection. It whispered that endings were never quite final, and beginnings often hidden beneath the surface. Life, with all its complexity and mystery, continued, folding new days into the old, weaving pain and joy into a single story. And so the story rests here, between earth and sky, memory and hope, waiting patiently to be told again. The threads of Cain and Abel's tale are intertwined with the earliest days of humankind, a gentle reminder of the power found in choices and the quiet strength of the heart to heal. May the stillness offer space for the story to breathe, and in that breathing, may understanding grow, like a soft light through the trees, illuminating the path ahead, one step at a time. In the quiet moments before dawn, Cain sat upon a moss-covered stone, watching the first pale light stretch gently across the sky. The wild land around him, once strange and forbidding, had begun to whisper its language to him. Winds carried distant bird songs, and the cool earth underfoot held a promise beneath the morning dew. Each day was a new beginning, a subtle invitation to learn, to grow. His hands, once clumsy in this untamed world, knew now the feel of soil slipping through fingers, the careful touch needed to coax life from the stubborn ground. The mark on his skin, which had brought him fear and shame, was now a symbol of endurance, a reminder that even in exile, he could live, create, and perhaps atone in his own way. Cain thought often of Abel, imagining the gentle spirit beneath the wildflowers where he rested. Though the pain of loss lingered, it was softened by the silence between moments, the space where forgiveness might quietly take root. Sometimes at night, he spoke softly to the stars, sharing hopes he scarcely dared name, a hope for peace, not just within himself, but for his world. The distant hills rolled with the rhythm of seasons. Lightning bugs would dance in the twilight, their brief lights as delicate as the fragile kindness Cain sought to nurture. He remembered the stories his parents told him, how light had emerged from the darkness, at the very beginning, shaping the world step by step, creating space for life and love to exist side by side. As days bled into nights, Cain's heart began to soften. He recognized the harmony woven through the wilderness, the countless lives living unseen alongside his own. Ants tracing tireless paths, trees stretching toward the sun, and the gentle murmur of streams weaving through rocks, all became threads in the fabric of his renewed purpose. Sometimes he paused to breathe deeply, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath him, sensing the eternal rhythm of beginnings and endings. He was part of a great story, tangled and imperfect, but alive. Each seed planted carried more than just the weight of survival. It carried a wish for kindness, for something better to grow from the sorrow. Other moments were harder, when memory curled around his heart like a chill wind. He recalled the moment his brother's laughter faded, the way Abel's eyes looked up to him, filled with trust and warmth. Cain wished he could reach across the divide, to hold that trust again, to mend what had been broken. Yet in the wild land where he now dwelled, there was also grace. The gentle ripple of a brook, the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze, the unspoken connection with the creatures near and far. They spoke of forgiveness without words, and of acceptance that did not demand perfection. Between the trees, light and shadow played their endless game. Cain found solace in the quiet patterns carved by the sun as it sifted through branches. Each golden beam was a reminder that even after darkness, light would return, that even after loss, new life would emerge. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the earth and the scent of pine filled the air, Cain noticed a small sprout pushing through the cracked surface of a stone. It was fragile but persistent, a quiet testament to resilience. He knelt beside it, brushing dirt gently away and whispering a soft blessing. "Grow strong," he said, "and show the world how even the smallest things can thrive against the hardest odds." The wildflowers nearby swayed as if in answer. Cain smiled faintly, feeling a thread of hope weave through his soul. At night, when the sky was clear and the stars shimmered like scattered jewels, Cain traced constellations he had never seen before. He imagined the stories they might carry, stories of forgiveness and freedom, of courage born from sorrow. His voice was barely more than a whisper as he spoke to the vastness above. "I carry a mark, but I carry more, a heart that seeks peace and hands ready to build." The land was changing too. Seasons turned in quiet cycles, and Cain moved with them, learning the ancient rhythm of growth and rest. He learned when to plant, when to wait, and when to harvest. With each cycle, he felt a little more connected to the larger world around him. One evening, as twilight deepened into night, Cain dreamed. In his dream, Abel approached him, not as a ghost, but as a being of light. There was no anger, no blame, only calm and understanding. Abel's eyes shone with something like hope. "Your heart is heavy, brother," Abel said, "but the earth holds plenty of room for healing. Let kindness be the seed you sow." Cain woke with a start, the words ringing softly in his mind. It was as if the dream had been a gentle gift, a reminder that even across the gap between life and death, forgiveness could find a way. He rose from the spot where he had slept beneath the stars, and for the first time felt a lightness in his step, fragile but real. The mark on his skin seemed to glow faintly in the dawn light, not as a curse, but as a sign of survival and strength. Days stretched into months. Cain's garden grew lush, a patchwork of colors and life amid the wilderness. Birds nested in the trees he had planted, and small animals came close, sensing the calm that now lived in his presence. In the distance, the silhouette of mountains traced a steady line against the sky, a reminder of the enduring world beyond his own small piece of land. Cain's thoughts often wandered toward his parents, Adam and Eve, and the garden they still tended. Their grief was a quiet echo, but also a beacon of life's unbroken thread. He knew that no story was without sorrow, no heart without scars. Yet in the spaces between pain, there was always room for growth, for new chapters written with gentler hands. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with shades of amber and rose, Cain stood at the edge of a clearing. The wind carried the scent of wild herbs and earth. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the land's embrace. When he opened them, a small figure stepped into the fading light. It was not an intruder, but a child born of this new land, curious and unafraid. The child's eyes were bright with wonder, and their smile was a quiet invitation. Cain knelt to meet the gaze, heart swelling with a tenderness he had not expected. In the child's presence, he glimpsed a future he had once thought beyond reach, a future where kindness blossomed, even from the hardest soil. "Come," Cain said softly. "There is much to learn from the earth and the sky. Let me show you." Together they turned toward the path that wound through the wild flowers, beneath the great watchful trees. The night grew still, but the stars burned ever brighter, timeless witnesses to the enduring dance of life. And so, the journey continued, not defined by mistakes or punishment, but by the quiet courage to seek forgiveness, to nurture hope, and to embrace the delicate beauty of beginnings new and old. The child's eyes shone with wonder, taking in the garden's gentle blooms and the quiet hum of life surrounding them. Cain watched as the small figure ran a hand lightly over the leaves of the sprout he had first blessed so many seasons ago. It was no longer fragile. It had grown strong, twisting its roots deep into the soil and lifting fragile branches toward the sky. In the silence that settled between them, Cain felt something shift, a gentle easing within his chest, where old burdens lingered. The weight of the past had not vanished, but it had softened, lightened by the presence of this new spark of life. He knelt down and traced a circle around the sprout with a finger, careful not to disturb it. "The earth is patient," he whispered, "and so are we." The child nodded, their gaze locked on the tiny green shoot that defied the cracked stone and stubborn wilderness. Cain's thoughts drifted to the mark he bore, the emblem of a long-past grievous act. For so long it had symbolized pain, a reminder of his exile and sorrow. Yet now, beneath this sky, with the dance of stars he had come to know by heart, it felt different. It spoke not only of what had been lost, but of what could yet be grown. The sky dimmed slowly, and twilight wrapped its arms around the garden. Small creatures stirred, an owl's distant call, the rustle of leaves as a mouse scurried home. All these small signs filled the air with a calm rhythm, a tender pulse that seemed to say, "Life endures, carries on through nights and days, through sorrows and joys." Cain took the child's hand gently. "There is a story in every star," he said quietly, "a story of forgiveness, of courage, of change. We learn from them, and so we grow." The child felt the warmth of his hand, steady and sure. Together, they looked upward, tracing the constellations with quiet reverence. A soft breeze whispered through the leaves, carrying the faint scent of earth and almost forgotten rain. It spoke of cycles, of the turning seasons, of endings that made way for beginnings. Cain breathed deeply, feeling peace settle more deeply than it had in many years. He thought of Abel, the bright spirit from his dreams who had urged him toward kindness and healing. Though gone from the world in flesh, that light remained, not distant but ever near, woven into the wind and the soil and the quiet night. This presence gave Cain courage, a steady light to walk by. "My heart," Cain said softly to the child, "holds both shadow and light. That is how we all learn to live." The child's eyes reflected the flickering stars, as if understanding beyond words had passed between them. In the coming days, Cain would teach the child about the earth, how to listen to its quiet songs, to honor the delicate balance of growth and rest. Together they would tend the garden, nurture the sprout that had become a young tree, and welcome the wildlife that flourished in the calm sanctuary. Each moment became a lesson in patience, in hope. With each passing sunrise, the past's sharp edges dulled into wisdom, and the garden blossomed, a living testament to forgiveness that had taken root in a heart once broken. And when the child laughed, spilling like clear water through the air, Cain felt a profound joy ripple through his being, proof that even from sorrow, kindness could bloom and the future held promise. Night would fall again, stars would wheel overhead, and stories would be told in their constellations. But now Cain understood. The greatest story was not the one of pain alone, but of the quiet courage to forgive, to heal, and to grow. Under that wide, watchful sky, two kindred spirits, one marked by the past, the other a promise of tomorrow, walked forward. The garden, their silent witness, stood firm and gentle, a living hymn to life's endless tender cycle. The night deepened as they continued along the winding path, bordered by the garden's wild edges. Each step felt measured, thoughtful, as if the earth beneath quietly encouraged their shared passage forward. Cain glanced down as the child's small hand slipped into his, finding a warmth that softened the crisp night air. There was no rush here, only the steady pulse of existence drawing them onward. Above, the stars hummed their ancient song, gentle and unchanging. Cain remembered how he once feared their gaze, as if the sky itself bore witness only to his guilt. Now, their quiet light felt like a soft embrace, each twinkle a reassurance that even in the vastness, none are truly alone. Abel's story, whispered among those stars, was a constant companion still, a beacon woven through the constellations. They paused beside a narrow stream, its water tracing silver ribbons over smooth stones. The child knelt down, dipping a small hand into the cool flow, watching ripples spread outward. Life moves like this, Cain said softly, ever flowing, never stopping, always shaping what it touches. The child looked up, eyes reflecting the watery dance. Even when the water hits the rocks? Especially then, Cain answered. Even when change seems hard or slow, it's shaping something new, something stronger. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves overhead, carrying the scent of earth and far-off blossoms. Cain inhaled deeply, feeling the night's quiet wisdom settle into his bones. In moments like this, the past felt more like a story told by a grateful heart, rather than a shadow weighing down his soul. They pressed forward until they reached a small clearing, where the moon poured silver light generously. Here the garden revealed itself in full, rows of sturdy plants flourishing alongside wildflowers that swayed freely. The resilience of the sprout Cain had once blessed was visible everywhere. Life had woven its intricate tapestry from sorrow and hope, creating a richer, deeper pattern. The child stooped to touch a blooming vine, careful fingers tracing its delicate petals. "It's so alive," the child whispered, eyes wide with wonder. "Life is always giving us new chances," Cain said, his voice steady, "if we learn how to see them." A few night birds sang quietly in the distance, their melodies blending with the soft rustling of leaves. Time seemed to stretch and fold inward, enclosing them in a cocoon of calm understanding. The garden wasn't just a place, but a living testament, proof that forgiveness grows slowly but surely, its roots deep beneath even the hardest soil. Sharing what he'd once kept locked away. "I once believed that my mistakes defined me, that I was cursed to carry only pain. But the truth is different. We carry all parts of our story, the darkness and the light. And with each day, we can choose which part to nourish." The child listened, absorbing each word with the quiet seriousness of one learning a sacred truth. Together they moved gently among the plants, hands tending the earth, feelings tending the spirit. As dawn approached, soft hues of pale pink and blue began to paint the eastern sky. The stars faded, retreating like whispered promises held close to the heart. Cain stood tall, feeling the beginning of a new day like a refreshed breath. The child laughed again, a clear, bright sound that sparkled as naturally as morning dew. It was a sound that seemed to mend old wounds, a reminder that joy could arise even after the longest night. "We'll keep going, won't we?" the child asked, hope threading through the question. "We will," Cain promised. "Together we'll keep learning how to nurture what's good, how to forgive continuously, not just others but ourselves as well." The garden around them pulsed with quiet life, an endless cycle of growth and renewal. Cain's heart felt lightened, not because the past was erased, but because he had made peace with it. The mark upon his skin was no longer just a symbol of exile. It had become a seal of endurance and heartfelt wisdom. They walked side by side once more, the path ahead unfurling beneath their feet. Each step was a step away from sorrow toward hope. The stars, now hidden by the morning light, had shared their stories, passing the torch of courage silently between night and day. Cain glanced down at the child's face, bright with anticipation and innocence. In this shared journey there was an understanding deeper than words, a promise that even the heaviest burdens could be transformed by kindness, patience, and the willingness to grow. As the sun rose fully, bathing the garden in warm gold, Cain's voice softened into a gentle vow. "We carry our history, yes, but we are not bound by it. Every dawn is a chance to cultivate new life, to find new light. That is the true gift we have." The child smiled, eyes wide with trust and wonder, ready to continue walking beneath the endless sky. Together, father and child stepped forward, the garden behind them still whispering of lessons learned, of forgiveness earned, and of hope blossoming endlessly. And so, beneath the ever-watchful sky, they journeyed into the morning's embrace, bearing the story of Cain and Abel not as a tale of wrath, but as one of healing, where even the deepest wounds could give rise to the tenderest growth. The garden breathed gently around them, its breath carried on the soft wind. Each leaf shimmered faintly with dew, reflecting the tenderness of this new day. Cain moved slowly, savoring the tender balm of morning, the way light sifted through branches, casting warmth on soil and skin alike. He watched the child's face, radiant with the quiet joy of dawn, and felt a shift deep within, a pulse of hope steadying his heart. They knelt side by side, gathering handfuls of earth, marveling at the slow miracles within the soil. Tiny roots, white and delicate, embraced the darkness beneath the surface. It was a reminder. Growth happens in time, often unseen until fragile shoots break through the ground. "See how they reach?" Cain whispered. "Even when the earth is heavy and dark, life finds a way." The child nodded, fingers tracing the contour of a small sprouting leaf. "It's like you said, pain can hold us down, but hope can still grow." Cain smiled without words, knowing the truth of those simple remarks. His own story was layered with shadows and light, twisted with regret, but also threaded with the courage to carry on. The mark branded on his skin had once been a symbol of exile, a wall between him and the world. Now it felt more like a map, tracing the long road of endurance, patience, and self-discovery. They stood, brushing dirt from their hands, and walked toward the garden's edge, where wildflowers nodded in the breeze. The petals bloomed with reckless color, purples, golds, and blues, a quiet celebration of life's persistence. "Each flower starts as a tiny seed," Cain said softly. "It takes time, and sometimes storms, to become all it's meant to be." The child's eyes widened. "So we're like flowers, learning how to grow?" "Yes," Cain replied, his voice steady and low. "We're growing in kindness, in patience, in understanding. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes hard, but it's always worth the effort." A gentle rustle came from the nearby trees. The birds stirred awake, their songs threading through the morning air like delicate threads of light. Cain lifted his face to the sky, drawing in the freshness with a slow breath. The past could no longer tether him here. Instead, he forged ahead, carrying his lessons, his scars, his hopes. The child took Cain's hand, small fingers curling around his in a quiet gesture of trust. Together they stepped away from the garden, leaving behind the still sleeping blossoms, ready to face the new day. The sun climbed steadily, painting the world with a soft golden glow, inviting them toward paths unknown. Cain spoke again, his voice a gentle promise against the rising warmth. "We don't carry our past to hold us back. We carry it to learn, to understand, and to be better than before." The child squeezed his hand, eyes bright and certain. "I want to learn, I want to grow, and I will walk this journey with you," Cain said. "Every day we'll find new ways to heal, to help, and to hope." They walked on, two figures moving through the light of dawn, quiet footsteps in a world waking anew. The garden behind them remained, a living testament to sorrow transformed, to hope nurtured with patience. As the path unfurled, so did their story, never perfect, always unfolding, a gentle journey of forgiveness and love reaching toward the horizon. The future was a tender seed, waiting for time and care to bring it into bloom. And so hand in hand they stepped forward, toward healing, toward hope, toward the quiet strength of a new beginning. The breeze touched their faces softly as they walked on, leaving behind the quiet garden already waking with the subtle stirrings of life. Cain's steps were steady, measured, carrying the weight of countless yesterdays, but also an openness toward all the tomorrows this morning promised. The child beside him held tight to that silent invitation, eyes wide, heart just learning to hold hope without trembling. "Do you hear it?" Cain asked, his voice a whisper almost lost in the rustling leaves. "The earth singing beneath our feet?" The child pressed an ear close to the ground, feeling the pulse of unseen life. It was not the kind of song that burst loudly into the world, but a slow, steady rhythm, patient as stone, certain as the sunrise. It was the kind of music that reminded you growth is never hurried or forced. It simply happens, one quiet moment at a time. Cain knelt then, letting his fingers brush gently over the soil, dark and cool and full of promise. "Everything that ever lives is held here," he said softly, "even when you can't see it yet, like the roots beneath a wildflower or the dreams inside you waiting to bloom." The child smiled, their eyes reflecting a little spark of awe. "So even when I feel small or scared, I'm really just like those roots. Gathering strength, getting ready? Exactly, Cain nodded. It is the unseen places inside us that make the most difference. The parts that stretch out in the dark, not because they're afraid, but because they have to, because every step forward grows us stronger. Together they rose and continued their walk, leaving faint footprints in the soft earth. The garden faded behind them, its lessons no longer something to look back on with regret, but a sanctuary they carried in their hearts. A gentle reminder that every thorn could teach patience, every shadow hold a glimmer of light. As they moved through stretches of wildflower meadows, the child's hand found Cain's. It was an unspoken promise between them, to walk forward, to learn not from fear but from openness, not from shame but from love. "Do you think I can be like the wildflowers?" the child asked, voice thinned with wonder. "Bright, even when the wind pushes hard, beautiful even if no one notices right away?" Cain's smile was warm, a quiet kind of pride growing in his chest. "You are already like them," he said. "Remember, beauty and strength live quietly long before they show themselves. And sometimes, just standing through the storm is the most beautiful thing of all." A sky above was the soft blue of promise, fading gently into the tenuous gold of late morning. The journey ahead stretched wide, full of unknowns and whispers of renewal. Cain's gaze softened as he looked down at his mark, not a brand of shame, but a badge of all he had learned to carry with patience and care. It was a reminder that even when our past tries to define us, we have the power to make new meanings, to rewrite old stories with compassion and truth. Cain said quietly, "Only roads that teach us who we can choose to be. And sometimes, the hardest parts of our story are the roots from which our greatest kindness grows." The child squeezed his hand, grounding the moment in shared warmth. "I want to keep learning from you," the child said simply. "To grow patient, to be brave, to see the good, even when it's hiding. You already carry all of that inside you," Cain replied, voice steady and gentle as the earth beneath them. "I will help you feed it, tend it, until it can stand tall in its own light." There was no rush in their pace, no urgency in their breathing, only the slow, steady unfolding of trust. The world around them hummed with the quiet miracles of ordinary life, the flutter of wings, the shift of shadows, the wild celebration of 1,000 unseen things growing under the tender watch of the sun. And in this shared stillness, the story of Cain and Abel was no longer a tale of despair, but one of healing, an invitation to all who hear it to find the courage to grow beyond their pain, to plant seeds of kindness in the richest soil of hope. As they continued on their path, the child's steps grew lighter, their eyes brighter. Cain walked beside them, no longer burdened by old ghosts, but carrying a heart open wide, a living testament to the truth that even the deepest wounds can guide us home to love. Together they moved forward, two souls walking gently into a new morning, where every breath was a beginning, every moment a quiet blessing, and every step a promise that healing had no end. The day softened, slipping toward evening, as the sky breathed hues of fading amber and lilac. Cain and the child wandered deeper into the quiet forest, their footsteps a gentle rhythm over crumbling leaves and tender moss. The air was cool and still, the sun low enough to stretch the shadows long, like whispered secrets between the trees. Walking side by side, Cain glanced down at the child's earnest face, curious and open, eyes wide to absorb each flicker of light and sudden bird call. "Do you notice," Cain began softly, "how the forest moves slowly, but never stops? Even when it feels still, everything is growing, changing underfoot and overhead." The child nodded, cheeks flushed from the walk, ears attuned to the small sounds amid the grandeur. "It feels quiet, but alive," the child said with wonder, "like it's breathing." "Yes, breath is a kind of persistence," Cain replied, "a quiet promise that every moment holds life, even when it seems hidden." He lifted a hand and brushed a branch aside, revealing delicate ferns unfurling in the half-light. Growth doesn't always shout or rush. Sometimes it whispers, like these tender green fronds reaching gently for the sun. They moved slowly now, stepping around trunks wrapped with vines and patches of wildflowers, nodding with soft petals. Sometimes a butterfly fluttered past, a fragile hint of color drifting through the pattering light. Cain's voice lowered further, as though honoring this delicate world. "Have you ever thought about how every creature, every leaf has its own pace? Nothing is forced. Everything flows when it's ready. The child's eyes flicked up, thoughtful. But what if you want to grow faster? What if you're afraid you'll never reach the sun like the flowers? Cain smiled with quiet warmth. That's the human heart, a restless thing wanting to leap ahead. But rushing is like pulling at roots. It can break what is still forming. True strength comes from trusting the slow work beneath the surface, the seeds of patience and hope planted deep. The child's small hand tightened around a smooth stone, still warm from the sun. Will I always be slow? Will it take me a long time? Slow isn't less, Cain said gently. It's a different kind of courage. He reached down and picked up a fallen leaf, veins branching intricate and sure. Look at this leaf. It began as a tiny bud, and now it's fully spread. Each line is a story of waiting, of weathering wind and rain without breaking. A hush wrapped around them like a soft shawl, the forest holding its breath with them. Cain shook his head slightly, as if shedding old shadows. I carried my own stories wrapped in fear and anger for too long. But I'm learning to live with kindness now, to hold my past like this leaf, acknowledging every line without letting it tear me. The child looked at Cain with new understanding, vulnerability mingled with awe. You carry so much, and you're still brave, the child whispered. And so are you, Cain said, stepping closer. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's about moving anyway, slowly, quietly, with hope in your heart. He rested a hand atop the child's head, a brief pulse of warmth passing between them. You're already growing that bravery inside you. They settled beside a smooth rock by a gentle stream, its water clear enough to see the shimmer of pebbles beneath. Cain cupped some in his hands and let the cool rush fall over the child's palms. Water teaches us too, he murmured. It doesn't fight the stones. It flows around them, carving its own way over time. The child gazed into the ripples, watching reflections fracture and rejoin like fleeting dreams. So I can find my own way, by being patient? Exactly. Cain nodded, his voice a calm current, and by being kind to yourself along that path. There will be moments when you feel lost, or small, but like the water, you have the strength to keep moving forward. Softly, with resilience. The sun slipped lower, gilding the trees in a last shimmer of gold. Shadows merged into one another, and the forest hummed a quiet evening song. Cain and the child rose, dusting off their coats, and began a slow walk back toward the clearing where their day had begun. Their steps seemed lighter now, tethered by the gentle truths they'd shared, woven into the stillness around them. So, the child said after a moment, voice bright with a tender sort of wonder, what happens when you're brave but still fall? Cain looked down, thoughtful. Then you rise again. Falling isn't a failure, it's part of growing. Every wildflower has moments where it bends or breaks, but it always pushes upward again. The child smiled, the corners of their mouth lifting shyly. I want to be a wildflower like that. Cain's smile deepened, warmth folding into his words. And you will, because kindness and hope are the roots that hold you steady. They will grow quietly each day, even when no one sees. They reached the clearing as twilight began to settle, the first stars twinkling faint and humble overhead. Cain knelt beside the child, meeting their gaze with gentle conviction. Remember this, growth is not about reaching a finish line. It's about living kindly with yourself and others every step of the way. The child nodded, eyes soft and sure. I will try, even when it's hard. And I will be here, Cain whispered, touching the child's shoulder with a steady hand. As long as you want, to walk with you, to learn from you, and to grow beside you. Together they watched the stars gather in silent company, two souls quietly rooted beneath the vast, growing sky, hope unfolding between them like a tiny wildflower, ready to bloom. The night air held a stillness that felt like a soft embrace, wrapping them both in quiet warmth. Cain and the child lingered under the blanket of stars, each finding solace in the other's presence. Above, the sky was a deep indigo, speckled with countless points of silver light, steady and gentle like watchful eyes. Cain's voice, when he spoke, was low and tender. Do you see those stars? He asked, nodding upward. They don't rush their shining. They just glow, steady and true, night after night, long after we're gone. The child's gaze followed, wide and thoughtful. Like you said, it's not how fast we grow or change, the child murmured. It's about being there, being steady and kind, trying again, even when it's hard. Cain smiled softly. Yes, even stars need darkness to remind them of their light. The quiet returned, thick and comforting. In the stillness, the child felt something gentle stirring, a small seed of courage taking root deep inside. When Cain reached out and gently placed a hand on the child's shoulder, the contact was simple, steady. Remember, courage isn't about never feeling scared. It's about what you choose to do with that fear, and you are choosing beautifully. A long breath escaped the child, a mingling of relief and quiet pride. "This journey is yours," Cain said, voice barely above a whisper, "but you are never alone. We walk it together, step by patient step." The child's eyes flicked up, catching the glow of a nearby firefly. The tiny creature wove slow patterns of light through the dark, a delicate dance that seemed to echo the conversation between them. "You know," Cain went on, "sometimes growth feels invisible, like a stream flowing beneath the ice. You can't always see it, but it's there, steady and strong." The child nodded. "Like the wildflower you said. It doesn't scream to be noticed, but it blooms all the same." "That's right." Cain's voice held a warmth that settled into the child's chest like a gentle flame. "Kindness to yourself is the rain and sun for your soul." The child's smile grew. "I want to be kind to myself, even on days I feel slow or scared." "Well said," Cain encouraged. "That is wisdom as deep as any river." Together they sat in silence, absorbing the night's quiet lessons. The world seemed wider than before, filled with gentle possibilities rather than daunting barriers. After a time, Cain whispered, "Tomorrow is a new day. One more step, one more chance to grow." The child sighed, eyes heavy, but heart fuller. "Yes," the child replied, voice soft but certain. "One more day." Under the stars, with the soft rustle of the night breeze, they rested. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like a shared path, one that promised patience, hope, and a deep kindness that could carry them through any shadow. And in that stillness, courage began to bloom. The night deepened around them, a gentle hush settling over the clearing. The cool air brushed softly against their skin, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. The stars above shimmered quietly, each one a tiny point of steadfast light in the vastness of the sky. The child's eyes traced those stars, as if looking for stories written long ago, while Cain's gaze lingered on the fireflies, their delicate lights flickering close like whispers. "See how the fireflies glow softly," Cain said in a low, steady voice. "They don't flash all at once. They take their time, giving little bursts of light that gently fill the dark. We too can offer kindness steadily, bit by bit, without needing to be bright all the time." The child nodded slowly, breathing in the calm of the moment. "I think I understand. It's not about lighting up the whole world at once. It's about choosing to shine a little, steadily, even when things feel dark or quiet." "Yes," Cain answered, a warmth threading his words. "And sometimes that quiet glow is enough. Sometimes it's the softest light that makes the biggest difference, like a wildflower blooming in the shadow of tall trees." They sat there side by side, enveloped by the gentle night, the child feeling a new kind of strength settling in their chest. A steady strength, not loud or overwhelming, but persistent and sure. Cain's voice softened further, almost like a lullaby. "Courage isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about the whispers that say keep going, even when the shadows grow long. You don't have to fight the darkness all at once. Just take small steps forward. Each one counts." The child looked up again, eyes bright with a flicker of hope. "I want to be brave like that. Not because I'm unafraid, but because I keep walking forward anyway." "That's the bravest thing anyone can do," Cain said. "Bravery is not about being fearless. It's about kindness. Kindness toward yourself, especially when things are tough." The child's fingers traced soft circles in the dirt beneath them, a quiet promise forming in their heart. "I will try to be kind to myself, even when I want to give up or when I feel small." "And when you do," Cain assured gently, "remember that kindness is a garden you tend with patience. Sometimes nothing seems to grow, and then maybe after the rain, something will bloom you didn't expect." The night air pulsed softly with the rhythm of their breathing, the steady, slow beat of quiet companionship. A sense of peace wrapped around them, unspoken but deeply understood. There was strength in this shared silence, a kind of hope that neither could yet fully name but both felt stirring. The child's hand found Cain's. A simple clasp that spoke volumes, a bond not just of words but of shared courage, of a journey taken together through shadowed woods and into clearing light. They stayed like that for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead, listening to the subtle breathing of the night. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called softly, adding its gentle song to the evening's chorus. "Our journey will take time," Cain said, voice barely above a whisper, "and there will be moments when the path feels unclear, but you will never be alone." The child squeezed Cain's hand lightly, their voice small but certain. "Thank you for being here, for showing me that it's okay to grow slowly, to be kind, and to keep going even when I'm scared. A slow, kind heart is one of the most powerful things you will ever carry," Cain said, his words a soft blessing. As the night deepened, the firefly's glow dimmed until only the stars remained, steady, patient, distant yet somehow close enough to guide the way. The child leaned back, their gaze resting on the firm, everlasting light above, feeling for the first time a quiet courage blossoming within their own being. With a final, peaceful breath shared between them, the clearing seemed to hold its breath, a gentle pause filled with promise. The journey, though far from over, felt lighter now, carried by kindness, courage, and the steady, slow growth of a heart learning to bloom. And beneath the vast night sky, two silhouettes rested together, their quiet bravery shining as softly and steadily as the wildflowers and fireflies, as enduring as the stars. The path before them was long, but it was theirs, woven with the threads of hope, patience, and gentle strength, and that was enough. The night stretched on quietly, the cool air wrapping around them like a soft blanket. Cain and the child remained seated on the gentle rise, the earth beneath steady and real. Above them, the stars pulsed in calm silence, each a distant firefly of light in the sweeping dark. It was a moment filled with stillness, where time seemed to gather its breath and hold it, watching the unspoken understanding weaving between two kindred spirits. The child let their gaze drift from the constellations to their clasped hands, sensing a warmth that was not just from the night's gentle chill now fading, but from the bond that neither needed to name aloud. A deep part of them was beginning to loosen, a softening, as if the steady glow Cain spoke of was quietly kindling inside. "Can courage be quiet?" the child asked softly, almost afraid to break the calm. Cain's eyes met theirs with gentle reassurance. "Yes, the strongest kind of courage often is, not the kind shouted from mountaintops, but the kind that whispers beneath the noise. It is the bravery to keep walking your path when no one else can see your light yet. And sometimes it's so small it feels almost invisible," the child murmured, breathing out slowly. "That's why it must be tenderly protected," Cain said, "like a tiny flame curled in your hands against the wind. You care for it with patience and kindness, mostly with kindness towards yourself, when you feel it flickering or struggling." The child nodded. This idea was becoming clearer. Courage wasn't grand or fierce all the time. It was in the quiet, persistent glows that gathered slowly into something bright. They sat side by side, still fingers linked, absorbing the peace that flowed between them. The night was not empty, but softly full of lessons lived quietly, heartbeats steady and sure, each one a step forward. After a while, the child spoke again. "Why does it sometimes feel so hard to be brave? Like, the darkness inside is sometimes louder than the glow." Cain's voice was calm, like a gentle stream flowing through the silence. "That darkness is part of the journey. It is not your enemy. It's the space where courage grows, pushing up through the soil. You don't need to chase it away or fight it always. Sometimes simply letting yourself feel the darkness allows the light to shine all the more clearly." The child closed their eyes, imagining the fireflies, those tender lights flickering bravely through the night, not afraid of the shadows around them. They felt a shift inside, a quiet promise growing, that even in the hardest moments, a small flicker of light remained, steady and true. Cain squeezed the child's hand lightly, and when you feel that flicker dimming, remember to breathe kindness into it, to treat yourself the way you would treat a friend who is frightened or tired. The child smiled softly, the heaviness in their chest easing, the way a cloud parts to reveal soft blue sky. "I think I'm beginning to understand. Brave doesn't mean never feeling afraid. It means still choosing to glow, no matter how softly." "Yes," Cain breathed, as if sharing a sacred word, and each small glow feeds the next, until the night feels less daunting, less alone. Together they turned their faces toward the stars, letting the cool night air fill their lungs, steadying their hearts. There was no rush here, only the slow unfolding of courage, like petals opening under a gentle sun, small but sure. Cain's voice broke the silence again, warm and steady as a familiar song. And remember, you are never truly alone, even when the path ahead is unknown. The stars are watching, the fireflies are lighting the way, and I will be here, beside you, every step. The child's eyes glistened quietly. Thank you, Cain, for showing me how to find my light. He offered a soft smile, a stillness that spoke of enduring hope. You already have it. All you need is to nurture it with patience and love. The night lingered around them, a gentle, timeless listener to their quiet courage. As they sat there, hand in hand, the world felt fragile, yet unbreakable, a place where even the smallest sparks could grow into wildflowers lighting up the night. Without speaking another word, they rested together under the vast dark sky, two lights steady and intertwined. The child felt their breath slow, their heart calm, a silent assurance that growth would come, slow and sure, like dawn after a long night. And with that peaceful thought, their eyes closed softly, minds swimming gently in the deep blue quiet where bravery was born anew, steady and kind, like the first light waiting to bloom.